Hey everyone, and welcome as we continue our study through the New Testament, looking at the New Testament church, and we're still in Second Corinthians, looking at Paul's letter to them. And today Paul covers his hardships. It's about 10 verses, and he just kind of hits on the hardships that him and Timothy have been through, and some of the apostles have been through. So we'll go through this real quick, look at some notes, and then close it out. It says, starting in verse 3 of chapter 6, he says, "We live in such a way that no one will stumble because of us, and no one will find fault with our ministry. In everything we do, we show that we are true ministers of God. We patiently endure troubles and hardships and calamities of every kind. We have been beaten, been put in prison, faced angry mobs, worked to exhaustion, endured sleepless nights, and gone without food. We prove ourselves by our purity, our understanding, our patience, our kindness, by the Holy Spirit within us, and by our sincere love. We faithfully preach the truth. God's power is working in us. We use the weapons of righteousness in the right hand for attack and the left hand for defense. We serve God whether people honor us or despise us, whether they slander us or praise us. We are honest, but they call us impostors. We are ignored even though we are well known. We live close to death, but we are still alive. We have been beaten, but we have not been killed. Our hearts ache, but we have always have joy. We are poor, but we give spiritual riches to others. We own nothing, and yet we have everything. Oh, dear Corinthian friends, I love how in this where I love this true heart comes out in these last couple of sentences. I think we have spoken honestly with you, and our hearts are open to you. There is no lack of love on our part, but you have withheld your love from us. I am asking you to respond as if you were my own children. Open your hearts to us. And so this is kind of a different side of Paul that we've kind of seen a little bit here. He really does go a lot deeper in his true heart. And I guess what we would say is like, he puts his heart out on his sleeve, right? He, excuse me. He really just pours out his heart and his true feelings here for the Corinthian brothers and sisters here. He said, and so Paul he gives a revealing picture of the hardships of his ministry. He really dives in. And he's not doing it to brag. He's just doing it to show what they're really going through. And he lists 9 trials, right? And many of them are what we see he experienced in Acts as we've gone through Acts and seen those, and we'll see a couple more. As we go through Acts, the things that he went through and the hardships that he's gone through, right? But through their steadfast suffering for the good news, Paul and Timothy, they showed that they were true ministers of God. This is our proof. Look, we're not doing this for the glory. We're not doing this for look at how powerful we can come or anything like this. We're doing it because we love you all. We love what we're called to do, which is to spread the message. And so Paul describes the spirit with which he faced suffering, right? And he attributes his strength through the presence of the Holy Spirit within us, and that's the only I think that's one of the most powerful things that we have going for us is through the power of the Holy Spirit we can prevail, we can move on. And so Paul's character as an apostle, right? It was often attacked, and we see this in most of the letters that he's written. He has to defend his apostleship, and a lot of it comes back, I think, obviously from who he used to be, but also a lot of the other apostles all the other apostles had been with Jesus, right? They were part of Jesus's ministry and stuff like that, whereas Paul wasn't. And so I think he had to. I think he was attacked a little bit more for that. But what we see, right? He and his colleagues were even called imposters a lot of times because of who he was and what he used to be. But he defends that and he says, no, right? I am who this is. I am who I'm called to be. The proof's here. You can see everything that happens and has happened, and my character and everything I've done, and so it's true to who I am. But he was honest, right? And instead of despite that people's attitudes and stuff like that, he was honest, and he says they must have thought that Paul was a nobody who could be safely ignored. Or some foolhardy person who ran unnecessary risks that made him as good as dead already. And so I think there were some people who just dismissed him because they saw his behavior as foolish a little bit and unnecessary. But he's like, no, I'm doing this to spread the gospel. And so Paul rebukes each of their allegations. He's like, no, all right, with insight into spiritual reality. He's like, this is the reality of who we are, who we've been called to be, and it's not easy. And so he dives that into his hardships, and links it to his hardships, and says, look, this is who I am. These are the risks that we've had to take. This is the things we faced, all because we love you all. We want to see your heaven, and we're going to spread the message of Christ. And so then he has that last. He closes with that impassioned plea, which reveals his true feelings and his inner feelings. It's like, look, he's like, I see you all as my literal children, and I love you all, and I want to see you the best for you. And so he's like, he's just pleads with them in the end to make sure they, you know, they do become who they're supposed to become, and who they've pushed for them to become, and all that. And so we see a little bit more of an insight into who Paul is here, and who, his true heart, his true, because a lot of his stuff's like really getting on to him, and correcting them, and there's a good heart behind that. But I think we really see it come out here in Second Corinthians, and it pours out. So we'll continue this tomorrow, and he kind of shifts from here a little bit. We'll continue on, and we're not quite halfway, I don't think, through Second Corinthians yet, but we're getting there. And so I hope y'all are enjoying this. I hope you're learning from it. I hope you get a little bit more insight as we go into this every day. And as always, I appreciate everyone who takes the time to watch these. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, I ask that you do that, just so that you get the notifications the daily as we send these out in the mornings. But as always, more than anything, I just appreciate everyone who takes the time to watch, and I hope y'all have a wonderful day.